No. I'm done. Said to keep me on before, but I still think this thing. And then I said, because the portion is very simple.
All right, 6:30, calling the meeting to order. So before we begin with accepting the meeting minutes from prior meetings and reviewing slides, I have to correct something for the record that I want in the meeting minutes. Statements have been made in the public that the Enfield town budget is going up by double-digit percentages over 10. That is actually not factually true. As it will be reviewed in this meeting, it has been reviewed in prior meetings, the budget is increasing by less than 2. And at this point in time, the budget is increasing by 1.6%. While it's true that taxes are going up by more than 10%, that is not the result of increases in the budget. That is the result of decisions that were made last year with respect to the use of fund balance. We'll review the details of that throughout the day. Thank you. So, meeting minutes. Any motions to accept meeting minutes from 11/21 and 12?
So move.
12,
Um,
second.
I'll second, but on November
Any dis-
21st, I have,
Yes. Go ahead.
So on line 69. Is this one? Oh, maybe it was the other one. Wait a minute. Which one? November, I think, Nancy. I think it was November. Yeah, the second one.
Well, while you look for it,
Okay, hold on, I wrote it down and I wrote down the number, but now it's not jiving and I'm not sure why.
Looking at line 69 on, December 12th,
That's what it is.
it's incomplete.
That's the one, it's on December 12th.
Yeah,
So,
69 to 71.
yeah, right. And then
Yeah.
I thought.
unless Ed remembers what he said.
Yeah. I know, so I think we gotta get a line must have been deleted accidentally as when it was saved or something.
Do you see that, Ed?
Or you can put a period and remove because yeah.
It's page 2.
Yeah.
71, yeah,
Oh, 71. Okay, I was looking at 69.
and yeah, but it started, you know.
I think you were giving credit to Brad at that point, for pointing you in the direction of,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
change in benefits.
So I would make a motion that the December one, we wait until we get the rest of the minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
I actually just have a question on the December ones.
Okay.
On, where it starts line 36, just a clarification, really, the vote said 5-4, and I thought that Jim abstained from that vote.
Which one is
mhm.
Moving the advanced transit out of the budget back into the regionals, and I thought you abstained when we voted.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
Oh, okay, that was my only question.
I was gonna say on the The other minutes on that line 71, I think we can probably just strike that last part. We don't need a dictation of everything that was said in the meeting, and I think the point was made before that the budget changed because of the benefits from town.
So you delete the sentence that starts, he noted that the tax
Yeah.
increases only. Alright. So I'll make the motion, we approve the December 12th minutes, deleting the last partial sentence, which is, starts on line 70 and ends on 71.
Second.
All in favor of accepting the modified minutes?
Aye.
All right,
Then I'll make the motion to do the November 21st minutes because
Oh.
since we did that one special, my motion to approve it.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye. That's clean.
Yes, the presentation.
Strike the
So-
first one.
Yeah, it's right for it.
So this is ref 2 of the presentation. You all have received ref 1. I implemented comments that I have received. We'll go over ref 2. The goal is that you bring up comments as we go through the slides, and if they're small, I'll just edit it on the fly and be done with it. If they're like, hey, we should rework this whole slide, I'll take notes and then I'll rework and then send it out probably in a couple days. All right, there was a request for including some definitions on what budgets and taxes, rates, and what those all are. I decided to not go make text up myself. So I did some Googling. I looked at different websites on who I thought was explaining it better and didn't take like 2 pages to do it. And so I then copy pasted that text and quoted it, and I included the source in the bottom. My plan is when I present this, I'm not going to read this word for word. I will describe it, right? And so I'll describe operating budget and capital improvement program budget. I'll explain what the tax rate is and how it kind of gets set. And that's these two. I'll explain how the tax rate includes a town tax, a county tax, local school tax, and state education tax. And then I'll move on to the second one. And that is, again, you can see the 2 quotes for most of the page. That one is from New Hampshire Municipal.org, where they essentially explain that A, the tax is set by the DRA. No, the tax is not straight your budget. You take the budget, you subtract revenues from it, right? You take valuation. And so I'll kind of go through that. At the end, they also explained, when revenues go up, taxes go down. When revenues go down, taxes go up. So that there's an important part. It's not just the budget, it's the budget and there's the revenues.
It might be important to point out, I don't know if this is the slide to do it either, but like the state meals and rooms and stuff that we budgeted very conservatively.
Right. And
If they
so,
come in higher, we can make that adjustment at the fall tax time.
right. And so I was going to bring this up, like, I was going to explain what are the different revenues, and it's listed right there. I was probably going to just read that. State aid, motor vehicle fees, like all those things. I'll explain. Revenues are estimated, but luckily, this is the good thing about the state setting the tax rate in November, is that by the time you get to set the tax rate, you're at like 80% certainty on what your revenues are. So if your revenues end up being higher, the state will make it higher.
So Dimitri, I always hate to give suggestions to somebody that's done a boatload of work when I haven't done any of it. It lands on me very complicated.
I know.
And if we could simplify it without the quotes and just give us some bullet points. So that people say, okay, budget, got it. Okay, tax rate, yes.
So here, I'll do this. So here, I considered that, right? But then I was like, okay, there's gonna be people in the audience who don't believe DIMI, who are gonna believe New Hampshire.gov and things like that, right? And so what I can do is I can put the detailed text in the back. I can do a simplified version up front with the reference and say, look, you don't believe me? Go read the information in the back. If you still don't believe it, go to the website and read the whole website.
I think that's a great solution. I hate to lose them this early.
Right. So I will not fix
Good point.
it here because this will take me some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that as this now comes up, so when we have the public meeting, do we have printouts for the audience? Okay, good. Then I had one on, I'll do the same thing, I'll clean it up. It's on revaluation and how valuation impacts your piece of the pie. Right, again, I'll do the same thing, I'll simplify it. Okay, so once we go through this, and I will clean this up, I'll put the revised version out, probably things are a little hectic at work, so it will probably be Saturday. Okay, so then we're gonna have this one. The only change I made here from the version you saw is, so in the version you saw, it said here like 71% increase. And I essentially said the increased valuation is the main reason why your total property tax rate decreased from 2716 to 1691. But that is the tax rate. That doesn't necessarily mean that your tax bill went down because your valuation went up. But that's the reason why the tax rate decreased. I was going to also state verbally, so I have done some math. I didn't want to include the map here because I think it's too complicated. But does everybody know what normalization is?
Yeah.
So if you normalize the tax rate of 2024 to the 2023 valuation, it means essentially saying the revaluation did not happen. I looked at, so that's how I came up with the impact on tax rate to 6.57, right? So if you look at the individual rates, you'll see also two things. DMU was way off on school tax impact. We projected 3.2 and it was over 7. I have no idea why. That's a question for the superintendent's office. It's not even a question for the school budget committee because the school budget committee focused just on the district budget. So the school budget committee doesn't look at, oh my God, what fraction of this goes to Enfield, what fraction of this goes to different schools. All I know from people having explained to me, it's a complicated formula that's pretty much controlled by the state. That being said, last year I used the school district budget change to estimate their impact on taxes, which was 3.2. Our impact appeared to have been around 7. The second thing was our estimated tax increase was 13. It also was 7. So it came down. The reason why it came down from the numbers I had is one was our revenues were $150,000 roughly higher than what we projected. And then the other reason, I wasn't really sure, I was going to let Ed comment if he wants, but I believe it would be the increase in value in the town from new construction, upgrades, all those other things. Because the numbers actually do match. If you look at the total tax levy and you look at the valuation, you get that same tax rate. So it would be the tax increase to Enfield, which now shows the importance of increase in revenues, even though the budget was the same. The revenues went up, the valuation went up, and the impact on the rate was not 13, it was 7.
Well, and if you look at the budget summary that we get you, it states right on there, and we give a couple examples, so if the value stays the same, if
Yes.
it goes up by 1%, it almost never stays the same, but we usually project our tax rate off of that.
Because then it's conservative.
Just to be safe and conservative, yeah, I would hate to project a 1.5% growth and not get it.
And so, long story short, I'm gonna say this to a town meeting. I'm not gonna go through all the detailed numbers, but I'm gonna say DMU was pretty lucky that it was 6.57 instead of 6.27. Because, so county tax was 5, I projected 2.8. School, local school was 7 and I predicted 3.2. Town was 7 and I predicted 13. And state education, I predicted 2.8. I was negative 0.2 2, I believe. So it's like insane how these numbers can vary. So when I get to town meeting, I will do my projection again, right? For the main reason to illustrate to people how the numbers work. Even though there's a massive amount of uncertainty, the good news is for you to be way off on the 6.27 and say it becomes 8, your 4 numbers would all have to be higher. Right? And so I think the reason I'm lucky is just by randomness. Something went up, something else went down, and it kind of balanced out.
And I can almost guarantee ours will come down.
Right.
We budget that way on purpose, so it comes down solid.
And I think one on the school one, I've asked for numbers, haven't found any, nobody's watching, but like one thing that goes in is, is your student population changing? Right? And so Enfield will pay more if there's more Enfield students 1 year to the next, and it's on a 3-year rolling average.
I think it's important to point out to the public what percentage the town tax rate is as compared to the total tax rate.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah, the more you can simplify that, the better. I sense some people hiding under their chairs.
I know, but I'm giving the detail here because I would hope most people understand it, and I think it's important that people here have the facts.
Yeah.
So that if somebody like, I have situations where I have discussions with neighbors and things like that, and they say things like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." I'm like, actually, that's not true. Or like, why are we paying for all these improvements to the sewer system? Well, actually, you're not.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Understood, yeah,
that's why I want to share it here. I'm not going to go into that at town meeting or the
All right.
public hearing.
okay.
I'll keep it simple.
So I love all your facts. I have a suggestion on emphasis.
On what?
Emphasis.
Okay.
So the valuation, if your goal is to make sure everybody gets all the facts straight, the valuation is really important. Just put it there. If your goal is to make sure people go away from this meeting feeling like the committee's doing its job and the town has a reasonable budget, I think the second half of that slide is wasted. Instead, you should say, okay, 23 to 24, your taxes went up, but 24 to 25, we don't know the taxes yet, but the town budget's only going up 2%.
So, in that case, because this slide was, the second part of the thing is in the introduction to the next slide. So maybe the answer is because what are a bunch of people going to say? Well, my taxes didn't go up 6%, they went up 30%. I don't believe you.
No one's looked at, they're gonna.
And the ones who went down by 10, 20% will go like, I'm not saying anything.
Right.
And so, this is, I essentially say, look, when I present this, I'm not gonna go through all the details, say, look, we predicted 6.27, it ended up being 6.57. But it's not that simple because we had a revaluation here. And that means some people had their taxes go up a lot. Other people actually had their taxes go down. But on average, people really only saw a $250 change in their tax bill. But that's just half the people's,
Still, half the people that change that small, it's a pretty significant.
Yep. And so the second part of this slide was to lead into, to preempt myself to the people who say, hey, my taxes went up 30%, you're lying. I don't believe you. Or go like, well, the revaluation had a massive impact. Here's the impact.
The thing I don't see that a lot of people completely get is that the reassessment is designed to mirror the fair market value of your home, right? And some people just think it's somebody out to get them, and it's not. We're saying, you'd be fortunate to have your taxes go up, because that means the value of your house went up. And so you could turn around, you could sell your house for a lot more, and the difference between the tax and what you could sell your house for is you'd be in a good position.
You're talking like an investor, which I think most people might want.
But if they don't wanna sell.
Sell their
the
house,
they're not
that's-
Again, it's based on something solid, which is
Right.
fair market value.
And so that is covered in this slide and will be presented simpler than all the text stays here, because here how it says.
Market value.
Properties through market value.
Why don't you bold that?
Yeah, bold it or underline it.
Yeah, but remember, I'm making that slide very simple, 2 bullets. So that,
Make sure that part's in there.
Make sure that part's there.
yes. Here, I'll put it in red to make sure that's in
Always blame the market whenever you can.
there. So, but essentially, the statements here are, so I'm gonna say it went from 6.27 to 6.57. Most people who had their bills go down or not go up much are like, oh yeah, you're right, that it was close. There's gonna be a whole bunch of people who are not gonna be happy. And then I talk about this slide. Similar to what I did last week, I'm saying, look, half the households had their bills go down, go up less than $248. A quarter of us had their bills decrease. Unfortunately, we had 20% of people who had their bills go up more than 1,000. And I'm gonna say this, the widespread is the revaluation. If there's no revaluation, it looks like this. Which means next year, we expect it to look like this. Next year, we expect not a widespread, not a whole bunch of people having reductions, not a bunch of people having big increases. We expect everybody to be much closer to each other in the change in their tax bills.
A lot of the people that went up can't vote, and that's another thing they don't like too.
Because it's second property.
Yes, yeah, they're not residents.
They can't vote, they won't even be here.
Yeah, do they go to town meeting at all? No.
A resident someplace else, they can.
Yeah.
Oh, they can.
Right.
It's information.
So that's another thing that
I know.
real concern to people.
But that's state law.
I know, I know.
So-
That's the thing.
An interesting thing to notice, like, you see here how we have this tight spread around the 0, and then we have this pile that's on the far right, that's a little bigger.
Mhm.
Those are highly correlated to your major renovations and your new constructions. Because that is a lot going from a small amount to a big amount.
That was on that side.
Dimitri, on that page, the bullet, I feel like the average person reading that is not gonna know what you tell them.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to change them, sorry.
I know.
Changes are not as dramatic in a non-reevaluation year.
Instead of median, you might be able to get more understanding with 50th percentile.
I just say not in a reevaluation year.
In years, no value.
You're non-evaluated. Yeah.
The last time there was a big increase in the market value. In the next 6 months, there was a big drop. You remember in 2007? So that was,
Was that the recession?
Yes, that one.
2008.
Leading.
that created a,
That Oh, presumably yeah. didn't change the distribution.
couldn't sell your house for what it was valued at.
I remember when I was buying my house, people were advertising in Hanover, they're selling below assessed.
You just got, yeah.
Be careful, clean up later.
That's say close to the, say closer to the 50.
So this is reminding people that yes, our general fund increased. These are the numbers by close to 14% last year, mainly because of increases in debt service and operating costs and benefits. We reduced the impact on taxes by liquidating unused funds. That's to refer to all those funds that we had sitting that were not being used. And then use of fund balance. And I split it up between the 295 and the 46.5 because the 46.5 was a refund. I was like, that would have happened kind of anyway. And so the total tax reduction was like $400,000 out of 17.4 million, which is about 2.3%. Which is not small.
So you reminded me of 290, we took 100.
It was
That's
100,
right.
it was 100 as a pure tax write-off,
Right.
and then 190 for finalizing Shed Street and doing
Okay,
this and
That's
doing
right,
that.
okay.
So that's kind of setting the stage for, hey, and I'm gonna say here too, remember, talked about this at that meeting. We reminded people that even if the budget went up 0, your taxes were still gonna go up because we can't keep doing this reduction of $400,000 by using cash in the bank. Standard chart on inflation. And then we go in our standard budgeting stuff. So this is the slide that we've had in every single time. I'm not changing it. 2025 level of service is also same slide as last year. I will remind people here the way it's being done. Like you will see expenses for water and sewer and all those, but those are funds are actually offset by revenues, which means
You should do it on the community nursing, because that's in some of the narrative in there. That's
Yeah, fundraising will pay 100% of that.
Right,
And
and
if
I
we
think-
have a revenue coming in, that'll offset.
yeah. And
Well. Thank you.
We would get reimbursed for our expenses from the fund, so yes.
Yeah.
actually all do. I'll put those first, because those are the ones that I hear people complain about.
yeah, they don't know, yeah.
They just, I have to remind them every single time. That water and sewer is not paid
Well, and
for
they're
by
fee
taxpayers.
based too. They don't.
Right.
And I would say, should you say youth sports or should you say youth recreation?
No, youth sports.
Youth sports.
We do pay for our own recreation. Youth sports pays for itself.
Hey, Joe, I was gonna, throw out a suggestion, people could disagree with me if they'd like, but when you talk about 2024, I think there's an opportunity there to recognize the town employees and if Ed wasn't in the room, I'd say this, the job that Ed did in 2024. Because we knew that taxes were going up, but we knew that we wanted to hold them down and we had some extenuating circumstances. And I think Ed did a phenomenal job at putting the brakes on things, with training, with.
So you're referring,
That's
so,
coming.
so, so
I don't know what the right spot is in the
the
presentation.
spot,
but I
in my
think we-
opinion, comes
Yeah,
later.
you have a slide for it.
I have a slide for
All right.
it. I have a slide for it. So I have a slide that looks back on 2024,
Okay.
and that's where I was gonna bring it up.
That's where the printer, the ink right now.
Yeah. So then I'm gonna talk 2025.
Don't leave this slide.
Huh?
Don't leave that slide.
Oh.
You need to delete lifeguards and pick another choice because you haven't hired any for 3 years according to everything. we're getting.
No, but we did.
No, but we
increase
increased the
wages in
budget.
Right,
from
but it's not
2025.
just lifeguards, it was other things, right?
Yeah, is there somebody like,
I'm thinking like the summer
else?
rec help, something like that,
Yeah, they went up some, the camp counselors.
camp counselors or something. But if I were sitting there and go, okay, I don't believe this whole presentation now because they didn't hire any lifeguards, so how can they use that?
Leave it to seasonal workers.
So I
I'll
would,
leave it at seasonal
or
workers.
seasonal work.
And then when somebody asks, I can say camp counselors,
Right,
lifeguards, because we haven't been able to hire any, we're gonna offer more money.
Well, it's almost all of them.
Right.
We did increase the pay. We got it out of this year's budget, but we increased it for next year too. Where it's shown for seasonal DPW workers for the winter. Get some extra plowing.
Okay. Then, I was gonna not put it in the slides, but I was gonna recognize Brad
Oh, good.
Yes,
on the bottom one for essentially getting us to look at this. And operating cost is a much shorter slide because it barely changed this year. I did list some of the bigger movers. Those are literally, I went into the line by line budget and I sorted it from high to low and low to high, and I got the big numbers out of there.
So Dimitri, I still,
Right, so.
Yeah.
The reason why here, the budget for Shed Street went down because it's almost done.
I know, but we're still paying money for things like monitoring, right?
Yeah, but like $5,000.
Yeah, we put 5,000 in the budget, not
75.
75,000.
Okay, so
It's like,
I still think there needs to be an explanation about the cable access thing.
I know,
So that
it's like,
people can better understand that.
I was gonna speak to it. I was,
Okay, okay.
I'm saying, so look, we have some increases because we're moving back in Wiki Hall and we're gonna. Is it furniture? What's the $60,000 for?
Most of it is, most of it looks like it's gonna be for the select board meeting room now, buying
Okay.
chairs and tables and those types of things
Okay.
up there. It was put in there when we didn't know where the budget was gonna come in, so it was, we may need some stuff for other offices, but it looks like we're gonna have enough for all of that. The 60,000 will mostly be spent in the audio visual and chairs and stuff upstairs.
Okay,
Make meeting room plural.
so then I have the finance software. I was gonna talk to that. I was gonna say, hey, Lebanon is increasing the landfill fees, so there's an increase for that. Cable access is actually going down, used to fund that. Do I just say cable access channel is shutting down and like, do I just leave it at that?
It wouldn't be if we funded it.
I know, so what do I say?
Keep funding.
I would take shutting down out. I mean, they will be, but
Like, I don't wanna go into a big discussion of,
Discontinued instead of shutting down.
discontinued
here, I'll say this.
funding.
discontinued cable access channel funding.
Then I don't even have to say zero.
You instead of an I.
And then Shed Street, I'll explain, it's like, hey, the last 2 years, we've been spending about $75,000 to remediate that whole property. We're hoping to be all done, we're not done yet, it's gonna be $5,000 next year, and that's why it's going down by 7.
Put some money just in case.
Ed, can I just ask a question, just because it feels like it's been ongoing forever and ever? Like, where are we at with Shed Street? I mean, I know, I thought at one point someone made an offer and then I asked a question a
Yeah,
while
we've got
ago. and you said
we've
it
got
had-
an agreement to sell it and we're both working on our sides. One of our agreements as the town is that we'll give them a piece of property with a clean bill of health, which DES has not released yet. So we're waiting on the state to say you're good to go or you need to do a little more testing.
And so we did accept the offer then of 80,000?
But revenues,
And there's reasons, yeah.
valuation.
You'll get more,
valuation.
you'll get way
Take a
more than
look at
that
what the assessments are.
annually in taxes.
But isn't there 8 of them? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, another story.
So Dimitri, to add on a little bit to what Dan said early on, I'm sitting here barely able to see with this font, and I'm not even the farthest away from this room. So
Right.
I would try to get a larger font for your slides.
So everybody will have printouts on the meeting,
On the public hearing.
on the public hearing, yes, and then for the meeting I'll try to increase them, but for the meeting in the auditorium, we're gonna be on a massive screen,
It's
right?
gonna be in PBS now. We're back
Back
to
to
the,
ES.
We're back to the elementary school.
How fun.
How'd that happen?
the select board decided the other night to move back to the elementary school.
So if.
We're
not-
traditionalists.
We're gonna save money too.
Even though there's handouts, being able to point that where you are in the
Yep.
handout. And clearly on your screen.
Do we
would
have
be
them?
helpful.
Do we have a pointer? Well, I'll try laser pointer
So-
because, so the other thing is I'm in this mode now, so I can make edits as people talk.
What about,
I'm gonna be in this mode.
is it possible to have page
It
numbers?
doesn't even show it.
They are in the lower right.
They're on the lower right. So when I'm,
Oh, okay. Not
you can't
ours.
see it now, but I'm gonna be in a different presentation mode that's gonna be bigger. I'm in the PowerPoint mode now, so I can make edits as people talk. I'm gonna be in presentation
Yeah, you
mode.
can look at a slide when you're in
Yep.
the mode.
And when I do slides for town meeting, I make the font as big as I can
Yeah,
and still have it fit on the page,
yeah.
just as a matter of course.
Um,
Thinking Dan, what Dan said, I had kind of a note on this page that, it would be good maybe to have a bullet. I just kind of roughed in something that said that, you know, the town manager, employees have extreme care to control the costs by departments or something brief like
It's
that.
in there. There's a
Yeah.
whole slide on it.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
But
It's coming.
that bears repeating sometimes. I mean,
So-
they tell you 3 times.
On that service,
Before they even hear.
it is not changing, but I left the loan information in here.
So Ed, can I just ask a quick question about that? Where it says loan secured at 4% interest rate for 20 years with a one-time rate adjustment. Does that mean the adjustment is after 20 years or not?
It's at the 20-year mark.
Right, that's what I meant.
There's a one-time adjustment and then it goes to 30.
Okay,
Our goal, I don't know if it'll happen, is, you know, Whitney Hall, we've managed down, we should be able to have a little bit of money to pay that down. And hopefully, with the interest savings and some of those other things, we'll be at past 20 years, but hopefully we're getting closer to that. So we won't have a full 30-year amortization, almost guaranteed, but. And then the other thought was, before that 20 years, hopefully interest rates come back down and we can refinance and reset that.
I will add, should I add this? If the opportunity presents itself to
No,
refinance?
I just leave it now. Don't complicate it, because
Yeah.
those are just future plans, things we've thought about, things we've talked about.
So then here. The cost savings, the big one was the health insurance decrease, so I actually have hard numbers. You know, what was budgeted in 2024 versus 2025 is $115,000.
So the
$1,000
prior slide says 125,000, so we can't have it both ways. We're gonna have it.
What do you mean,
consistent.
higher slide?
I can't remember, it's a ways back though.
Well, if that's what's in the actual budget,
I don't have anything that talks about,
Right.
so I have the
Benefits.
5% decrease here, but that's all of benefits,
Okay.
like all of benefits, meaning FICA, health insurance, everything.
Okay.
That's like everything. And most of it is health insurance. And then- So
Before you move on, can I ask you a question? What's the latest buzz, morale like around the health insurance changes? I know originally people were resistant, it was new. How are they feeling now? They getting better?
we're still struggling through some of the changes of change.
Yeah.
So I got an email today that someone wasn't happy that their medication costs went up, those types of things.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's fully computed that their costs went up and they have a card that's paying for it all. They do.
I'm just sensitive to, I'm a big fan of saving money. But by the same token, we've got a lot of folks out there that might still not be happy with it completely, so it's kind of a
Yeah.
fine line you'll be walking to make sure that.
Well, it's a big adjustment in how they're getting covered.
right, like,
So they're getting the
Yeah.
coverage, but making that adjustment mentally. It's a
Yeah.
big difference.
like I,
Different.
I had to do the math.
There's
with
some
my-
work on their side, so.
Right, I had to do the, and it might help, so here, this might help because. So when I got presented with my last, when I changed jobs, I did the math on the PPO and the HSA, and the PPO looked so much better. But then I did the maths, like, wait a second, you know, I don't have to pay for anything, but the monthly rates are this.
Mhm.
And on the HSA side, you know, I'm paying for a lot more, but they're contributing. And I went to the, what's the worst it could be? And the max out of pocket was actually lower for the HSA side because of the contributions my employer made to offset the increased cost. And
Yeah,
so
it's gonna take some time for
for
people
to
to
realize that.
understand it, and we're gonna have to work through some change issues.
I don't know what the answer is, but maybe recognizing that, because we're gonna have a lot of town employees in the room that are responsible for their families, that are still trying to get over it, if you will, still trying to get comfortable with it. So saying, look, we have some significant savings that we're glad to see. And we realize there are some changes that are challenging, but we do believe that in the end, this is really strong insurance or something to that effect. But you'll articulate it much more better than I will.
Well,
I will
and
make,
those medications were gonna probably go up under either plan, is what I find, you know.
it depends on the
But you
plan
don't
you
know.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe, and I think some of it is, you know, in the insurance we had before, they're paying a percentage of the cost.
Right,
Now they're paying the cost.
Right.
Until
And then
they
they get
hit
the
their deductible.
Right, but,
until they run.
but they have a card that's partially sponsored by.
Isn't that offsetting some of it?
Well, they're paying it with the card. They're paying 100% of it with the card, but they still, it's the consumer-driven health plan idea is before they weren't seeing what the full cost of what they were taking was. And now their receipt says $400 a month or whatever it is.
You know, I don't know, this is just kind of a side note, Ed, but having done that sort of work when I was there at Dartmouth, and you don't have to be dirt poor to qualify. Dartmouth Hitchcock has a medication assistance program that does amazing things for people that have high cost medications that they can utilize, and that's a very easy program to want to.
Write that down.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll look into that.
So, I got some numbers that we applied for $3 million of grants. Is that the right number?
I didn't add them all together. Let me see if the cover page says it.
I don't know, it'd be nice if we knew what was awarded. Like, if we have numbers for this, it'd be nice to just fill them out right here
Mhm.
and be done with it. Versus us doing it offline.
So in the DPW one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where the majority of it is, so,
Right, but so here, last year we
so
said,
$2,730,000 that was applied for, we have heard nothing.
right. Yeah,
So
so the-
nothing's
so-
been awarded.
So last year we applied for this much and we got X awarded. And I don't know what X is.
That would be under the approved amounts, right, chief?
Yep,
I didn't have the approved amounts.
it's the same spreadsheet.
I don't have the
He
spreadsheet.
doesn't have the whole.
Oh.
That might be a problem.
Give me a minute.
And then of the ones that were approved, I was gonna list them all out. Right? And I assume it's this 114,700 for the PD. Is that correct?
That's about right.
Is that the bulletproof glass stuff?
No, that's a whole bunch of different grants that we applied for.
And that would be in this year.
And then it's, well, was it 113,475 for public assistance?
What's that? What does that mean?
Bulletproof.
Public
Like,
assistance
somebody needs
grants are the
help paying
ones
rent.
that, so like when we have major storms and stuff like that, FEMA makes grants available that we apply for to help us recoup some of the money that we spend, extra money that we spend on like, you know, when we have to clean the roads and re-gravel them or chip all the,
chip all the, debris
Well,
that get blown in the road and stuff like that.
That's public assistance.
I have
They're called public assistance grants, yeah.
225, 708.99,
Hold on. 225,
708.
say 99, so that's good. Becomes 9.
I have different numbers than they have up there.
708.
Right, so this is again applied for, so I don't have the right numbers. Somebody's gonna tell.
You want the numbers
I want the number, like,
of what each area got?
the police, yes, essentially, yes.
Okay,
Police department got,
police department got 106,393. Public assistance was 116,048.46.
wait, how much?
048,
And then that's most of it, right?
and then DPW got
No.
$3,267.53.
3,362.
267.
And
8.
then I'll say no debt on large grant.
How about you just say pending? Or something like that.
Or what
In
is that?
process.
What's that?
That's for the water system that we're asking for a bond for.
Okay,
So if the bond passes and we get the grant, we won't take out the loan. Not hopeful.
Roll the-
We thought we'd throw the dice out there.
right,
You don't buy a ticket, you're not gonna.
Can't get it
Yeah.
if you don't.
Is it rural development?
No, congressional direct spending.
and so is it one of those? So we applied for the grant,
Yeah, we asked our senator to fund it for us.
okay, and if we,
That's
so
what
here,
we thought.
say. So how does it work, if the bond gets through,
If the bond gets approved on the warrant, so
Uh-huh.
it's going on the warrant to get an SRF loan to pay for this. If that passes town meeting and then we hear from our senator that, hey, we're gonna go ahead and fund this for you, we just won't take out the loan.
got
And
it,
we'll come back to town meeting next year and ask them to,
Accept the money.
yeah, can you please take this back? We're not gonna get it. Rescind the.
That'd be nice.
then this is the usual summary, I decided to do 23, 24, and 25. So people can kind of visually see, yes, there was a big jump from 23 to 24. And much smaller from 24 to 25. And so this is where the 1.6% is coming from. And I have my standard pie chart. Salaries and benefits are a little over 50%. Debt is 9%, and then operating costs are about a third. This is the standard general government operating budget chart. So yes, we saw these increases, but it's now back down. And unless, so these are the 2 years where these 12 and 14% are where the loans kicked in. And so the percentage increases should go to the pre-23 levels, but the total amount collected won't, because you gotta pay for the mortgage, right? And then,
On the bottom of that slide, Dimitri, in the parentheses, I was thinking maybe we should put that in red so it kind of catches attention, because when you've excluded items that people,
yeah, so
I don't know.
this is just a general government operating budget.
Right. But that doesn't always mean,
Oh, that's coming. Actually, it's coming.
I-
It's coming. So, and before I do that, so the unassigned fund balance, this slide is the same. But here's the new numbers. And so we have a surplus, thank God. We used a lot of fund balance, as we discussed earlier, but we're still going down.
Talk to Tim.
What?
I told her to put another note to talk to the auditor again.
Yeah.
We can push it a little bit.
Right. So one thing you note here is our fund balance is not going down much, but you may go like, hey, you know, why the heck is this line on the bottom increasing? Well, when your budget is going up, 8% of your budget is also going up. So if your fund balance doesn't go up with the 8%, with the increase in the operating budget, you're actually going down percentage wise. So we gotta watch this.
Could you, maybe explain where those target numbers come from? 17, 12, and 8?
So that is a policy set by the select board. And actually, there's New Hampshire guidance, and I looked it up. The Hampshire guidance is actually 5 to 17. That's the range New Hampshire, is it DRA? Who said that? It was some,
Sure it is, yeah.
yeah, sets targets for your fund balance should be in this range.
So I think those are both good points. And the fact that this is select board guidance. And then maybe a little bit around that. So the select board,
So essentially, so as everybody knows, we had this massive decrease and it actually went negative, right? After that, I would assume the select board got together and said, hey, we need a policy on this. This can't happen again. And I would assume they had reviewed what New Hampshire recommendations were and decided to edit the numbers a little bit. So
and it's important that we have this fund balance because
it's your emergency
Something comes over.
spending.
I think we should articulate that.
Yeah. It's technically your savings and emergency spending account.
Perfect.
Yep.
Simple enough.
So here's the slide where we say, so we had we have a surplus of 321, which given what transpired is actually quite amazing because of the belt tightening that the town has done. If you look at the top line item, see the principal expense overrun by $608,000, 964. I assume that is the miscommunication on the understanding of payments. No, right?
Kind of. I'm trying to think of how to word it. I don't want to throw Mascoma Bank under the bus, but it was their misunderstanding.
So essentially, I was to say, look, we had a large overrun in debt because there was a misunderstanding of payment requirements on the loans.
So the attorney said, yeah, there it is.
And so,
The top line, the top of that stuff I can't read.
yeah,
608.
I know.
Yeah.
It's -6. So we overran our principal expenses by over $500,000. Right, which means we budgeted one amount and we spent $600,000 more on principal expense. Not interest, principal.
Okay.
Because
So mainly because lawyers said, hey, wait a second, you have to pay that. I don't care what the bank says, you have to pay.
Over 200.
Go towards that because
Yeah.
you overran by 600,000.
Right, no, but I
So-
mean the payment itself.
Yeah, so
It's,
so when the town realized it, they went like, "Brr." Right.
well, and the reason it was principal, I don't know if you want to mention this, but it's part of the management thing, is we didn't withdraw that money till we absolutely had to, so we
Right.
weren't paying interest on it. So we withdrew it and made a payment, so it was almost 100% principal payment.
So long story short, they had to take more money out of the operating budget to pay down principal, which means it's gotta come from somewhere else. And everybody in town had to go through some belt tightening. Right? And so you could almost say, and I won't necessarily say this, but you could say the town actually over tightened their belt because they still have a surplus of 300,000. And they did that by essentially cutting all non-essential stuff and just stopping it for the year. Is that a fair
There's the-
statement?
the interest on the bottom is the offset for that.
Yes, the end is positive. But if I get into that, it gets complicated. So essentially, it's $200,000 more. But you guys tightened your belt more than $200,000.
Yeah, and we had some things changing. I mean,
Right, and so,
I'll take credit for managing this, but you know, with just some changing of personnel and stuff, we had some health insurance savings, which was a large chunk
Yes.
of that.
actually, you can see it in
We did have some personnel changes and
158.
I guess some of that was tightening the belt because a couple of those positions we purposely did not fill, knowing that we needed to make up some money.
And so I'm not gonna, when I present this, it's printed and people can look at all the numbers. I don't go through all the numbers. I essentially just give the highlights. Right,
Can you, I'm sorry, can you give the language you're gonna use for that top number again? The 608.
so. Maybe the better one is to say, hey, we overran our debt by $180,000. And we had to cover that by tightening the belt. And not even bring up the 600 and the 400.
I don't know if that's transparent enough.
Well, because it's not lying, right? It's, because one thing so they were talking about this, you probably didn't hear it, but, so see how the principal is 608? But then the interest on the bottom is 430.
Yeah.
So you really have to add them together.
Well,
that-
but I do
that
think
gets
if you
to the
point
180.
that out, it's almost a good news story that because paying the principal down impacts interest for the next 30 years, if you're amortized for 30 years. And so holding that and making more payment to principal and less to interest.
So so long story short, we saved money in interest because we didn't pay that, we didn't pull down the principal, we didn't pull down from the loan. Right? It's not like, so when the rephrase, I believe, my understanding is, when the building project starts, we didn't just take, what was it, 10 million and put it in the bank. We just let it sit there. As a result, it doesn't collect interest. So we save on interest. We were under the assumption we also didn't have to pay the principal or
Bank
make any
total.
payments, didn't have to make any payments on the bond. That was wrong. So we didn't budget for making payments on the bond because we were thinking we're not using it. But the lawyer was like, no, you're gonna make payments on the bond even though you're not using your money. It wasn't in the budget. So you might go like, as an ordinary person, like, wait a second, what's the problem? Just pull down some money from the loan and pay it. No big deal. Problem solved, right? Like, yeah, but no, it's not in the budget.
I think we need to say that. This is just my opinion again. Other people
Mhm.
disagree, but we need to make sure that we have fessed up to this completely. Fessed up for the wrong word, but there was an unexpected bond payment that
Right.
we had to make up for. I think that we come clean with that. If we're trying to,
Okay, is that a fine way to say it?
That actually might be better than misunderstanding, because then it just opens up a
Like,
whole
who did it?
confusion of there was a unexpected
Yeah,
payment that needed to be made.
absolutely.
If people want to come ask us why, then we can get into the weeds of why it was unexpected.
That fine, large debt overrun due to unexpected bond payment.
I think that's.
Unplanned or unexpected?
Unanticipated.
It's also bad.
That's the same as unexpected.
No,
It's a nicer word.
Planned for.
Yeah, I'll make it
I think-
unplanned.
unexpected,
Keep it simple.
that's for planning, unanticipated.
And then this, I'm gonna be a stickler.
But it wasn't for planning on the part of the town.
No, I understand that. It doesn't
Unanticipated.
matter.
Unanticipated.
I agree.
Bank part.
I'm gonna say I agree with them here.
What?
Unanticipated is a much better word than
It's the same.
unexpected.
It still says the same thing, but without a blank.
I like word.
So, so essentially, Kurt, so we had large debt overrun due to unanticipated bond payment. Right? here. So we had a large debt overrun to an unanticipated bond payments. The total overrun was $178,000. Led to major cost savings efforts across departments. Overall personnel went and underran by 183, operating by 298, and then a little bit of encumbrances.
That is much, much better.
Yeah.
Yes, it's much clearer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add in the verbiage is as directed by the select board and implemented by town management.
Okay, I'll say that in words.
Yeah, do that.
I'll do my best to remember that.
It'll be fun.
So now we get into, who was saying something about? Oh, yes. Now we get into the fact we have more than the general fund. Right, so same slide as last year, updated. So this is the expenses summary 23, 24, 25. So the general operating fund went from 23 to 24. So we saw the big increase, like, over 13%, but from 24 to 25, it only went up by 1.6% or $120,000. The water fund actually decreased a little bit by 3%. Sewer fund has increased by 2.6. Again, those two funds are like self-funded. Doesn't go to taxpayers. Capital projects is not really changing, and then TIF district is actually going down by 29. By the way, why is TIF district dropping so much? My math.
I believe there was an extra payment, but no, that
It
was
was-
the parking lot. There was $150,000 parking lot project.
Okay.
And
We're
It's
not
going.
going. Yeah, we encumbered that money, so it's not.
And then here's the additional one. So you have the CIP, right? It said that's the other stuff. So we capital fund. It's going up by its small amount every year, as we discussed, and it's going from 553 to 579. In 24, you see that reimbursement, and that's because of that insurance payment. And then we have police retention fund that we're moving money between funds, but it's still on the expense side. So it just appears on the savings too. So overall, if you add all the expenses together, it actually stays level. But that's mainly because of savings and other fund areas, mainly the TIF and the water. So those are all the expenses. If you look at revenues, I'm going to bring up the interoperating fund first. I remind people, remember, there's a whole bunch of stuff taxpayers don't pay for. Well, that's that line item that says interoperating transfers, then has 1.795 million in it. That's essentially water, sewer, TIF, capital all together. And so that appears on the revenue side because it's self-funded. Other property, other revenues are, and you asked about that, non-property tax revenue, and you gave an explanation for it and I forgot, but you gave me a
So
list.
it's other taxes, it's non-property tax revenue. So it's your timber yield tax, your excavation tax, current land use change tax, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it is a tax, but it's non-property tax.
And car registrations aren't part of that.
No,
Melissa?
that's
That's on the
Okay.
licenses.
That's licenses, fees and
Okay.
permits. So next one is licenses, fees and permits. We have it going up a tiny amount compared to last year. And then federal government. We didn't get anything last year, nothing this year. States,
We got money from federal government last year. And there should be a little bit for this year.
I don't know where it was accounted for, if it was in the grant fund or the general operating.
We should look at that, cause that was part of what's causing the change.
Yeah.
Cause we had 55,000 budgeted, I think something like that last year for revenues from FEMA.
Yeah, I don't know if it's under miscellaneous maybe.
It might be, cause that's about the right number.
Not the right
Right.
number.
Then if that is federal, just move it and send me the new numbers. So state sources we have going down. I think we're gonna get less money from Concord. If we're wrong, then this turns out to be a good thing and taxes will go down.
You probably will, since Kelly Ayotte's gonna tighten her belt. It's on the front page of the Valley News.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things and there's a lot of reasons it might.
That stuff's gonna,
Disappear.
I wanna budget conservatively and be happily surprised.
So we are currently, in our current budget, we have a decrease in revenues. Now, remember, taxes are not set until November. If reality in November turns out to be different and revenues are higher than what we forecasted, taxes will not go up as much. In fact, this is an estimate to help see what the tax impact might be when we get to November. I assume, so when you get to November and they set the tax rate, are they using actuals up to date and then estimates for the last 2 months?
Yeah, we do an actual, or we do a projected actual in August, and then when we get to tax rate setting time, they pull them back down and we look at them one more time.
Okay.
And make adjustments from there.
So essentially, we expect to see, it says the revenues are going down by 6%, right? But that's not really the numbers to look at because that includes these intra-operating fund transfers that cancel out on both sides of the equation. So what's impacting the taxes is really this decrease by 167. So when you now look at how much money you have to collect, you have to take all the money you're spending, 1 million. You take out the intra-fund transfers, water, sewer, all that, right? You get to 8 million, and that's still, that number is about 1% difference only. Then you look at all your revenues. Well, that's where the first hit is because that is going down. So now we're down on that. So that means taxes to be collected without considering use of fund balance is about 4% higher. But last year, we used a total of, over $400,000 in fund balance. So the result was, we're not doing this year, that the amount to be collected actually goes up 12%. But that's not because we're spending 12% more, that's because we used savings last year to make the taxes low.
No, we have to
So
pay
if we
it back.
took out that savings that we used last year, the 451.
It would be the 6 million. It would be 2 lines above. You see where it says 6.025 million?
Yep.
So if last year we decided we're not gonna liquidate these funds that we have and we're not gonna use fund balance at all, we would have collected 6.025 million instead of 5.5. And then the increase in the town taxes to be collected would have been 4.1%. But because last year we used a bunch of our savings to reduce the tax rate, and we can't keep doing this because otherwise the savings account goes empty, the taxes are going up.
I think that's where our discussion
Yes,
and difference is, and I think it needs to be highlighted that taxes are going up 12.5% under this budget.
yes, and I'm saying taxes will go up 12.5%. I'm not saying
But our budget,
the budget is not going up 12.5%. The taxes are, the budget is.
Okay, I think
different.
that can
It's real different.
look like a verbal shift. And that needs to be-
No.
But it's not.
No.
If you think the budget's going up.
That's
it's a
how it
lot.
will be perceived.
I
Well, we
disagree
need
with
to help
Dave on
them
that because
Understand it differently.
We used savings essentially, we used our emergency savings last year to pay for the loans.
What people worry about is what's coming out of their
Yeah.
wallets for taxes this year.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm gonna be very clear on what that number. And so the taxes to be collected from the town in absolute numbers is 12.5%, right? So when I estimate the tax rate, I'm gonna assume the valuation from last year. Which means I'm not assuming there's gonna be new buildings or new residents paying for more taxes, right? So anyway, so with all the estimated bold, the request is of certain multiple people that the estimates be highlighted. So in my estimate, I'm again gonna do what I did last year. I'm gonna assume the county and state education are following the COLA numbers, right? Remembering that county ended up being higher, state education ended up being up lower, but I'm gonna assume COLA. For the school, I'm gonna assume the full school district changes. That doesn't mean that Enfield is gonna have the same change, right? If Enfield population is growing and Canaan's population is going down, Enfield's piece of the pie is growing. And then I have our town at 12.5. If those things pan out, we get to 5.5% increase. Okay, I could be wrong. But for me to be wrong by 2%, that would mean all these numbers would have to increase by essentially, I'm not to say 50%, even though that's the right answer. So all these numbers would have to go up substantially for this number to go up from say 5.5 to 7.5. It's probably not gonna happen. I'm gonna budget in my family for 5.5%. Could it be 4.5? Yes. Could it be 6.5? Yes. Is it gonna be 2? No. Is it gonna be 8? No.
And again, last year, your estimate was within half a
0.25%. But all these numbers are gonna shift. The county is not gonna be 3.5. Right? The school is not gonna be 1.9, the town is not gonna be 12.5, the state is not gonna be 3.5. But these are the reasonable averages to assume, and everybody's is gonna move up and down a little bit. And so last year I was off by quarter, and I'll tell them again. I'll probably show up in a couple of years with a chart. Here's the estimate Dimi has made, and here's what reality has been. And it's probably a good assumption is 5.5 plus or minus a half.
I think that's a good chart to point out the percentages that each of the major categories, town, school, county, state education are of the total.
Yeah.
Just throwing out 12% and attributing it to the town is appropriate. However, you need to realize that that 12.5% is only a portion of the total.
Right. It's about 30%.
Yes.
And so this is to kind of get people, because at the end of the day, Dave is right, people are asking about, hey, what's coming out of my pocket? It's not going to be a 12.5% increase. It's going to be about 5.5.
That's right.
I think you also need to clarify that in addition to this is the CIP assessment.
That's included in it.
That's what it is.
Yep. So it's here.
Yeah.
Appropriations, all sources, 10 million. Oops. And the 10 million here includes CIP for 579.
Yes, it's different article.
Right, it's a different article, so we're gonna vote, and I'll probably highlight this. So we're gonna vote on this number, we're gonna vote on this number, the 9.463, correct? So we're voting on this number, even though what we're really voting on is the 7.666. But we're voting on the whole thing. This is just how government works. And then we're also voting on the 579. But what's really gonna impact your taxes is the 7.667 and the 579. Yeah, it's including CIP is included. This is a chart I started making, so again, I started hammering people on, don't assume, don't just look at tax rate because valuation changes tax rates. Like when you look at neighboring towns, it all depends on valuation. Here's a prime example. Our valuation jumped up like a whopping 70%, caused the tax rate to drop, but people's bill changed by $248. Right? And so I have the tax rate is expected to increase for the town 2,609. And it was 541. And that's $80,000 increase in appropriations. $165,000 decrease in revenue, and then the increase in work service credit. And then the big one is the one-time use of fund balance. So those are all the impacts. So this guy gives you an idea, you know, the decrease here, the decrease in revenue and the not use of fund balance is 88% of the increase in taxes to be collected. So the projected decrease in revenue, along with the fund balance used from 2024, is responsible for 88% of the increase in taxes to be collected in 2025. The other 12% is everything else. So, okay, so if we can get some more revenue, then that number will improve. But the big one is use of fund balance of $400,000. So that's going to be the draft warrant article for the public hearing. It will still say draft because we will not have voted on it when this is first presented, correct?
You vote on it after your public hearing.
Right. So, and then this will get, this big red thing will get removed for town meeting. That's the last thing.
Stop.
So we wrote these and send new versions out. I know, I agree. I was like, how do I do this?
We have to start there.
I know. Well, my main point is like, I don't want to just make up words myself and then just people go like, hey, who are you? You're not qualified.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad to summarize those
Yeah,
and then
Put it in the
you may want to change sources, but put something like more information and put the link.
Yeah.
And then if someone really questions you, you can slide to the slides at the end and say, here it is. But
yeah.
Five or six bullet points, short bullet points per slide, is
I know.
the way that you
I-
will get it across.
I hate the wall of text myself, so. I hate the wall of text myself.
Well, the tax rate being set by the state is really important. because
Oh, I know.
think that we do that sitting around the state,
No. I know.
and we don't.
So I'll clean those up. And it will be no more text than say this, right? It'll be this simply. And I'll do that from my comfy chair while I ponder and go try 4 or 5 times until I like it, and then I'll send it out. Anything else?
I have a few questions.
Yes.
So Ed, I have a few questions and some of them can easily be. So I'm curious if, I'm assuming the answer is yes. If the current budget proposed for next year allows, covers the cost of hiring a new assessor and rec director, if we typically have to hire at a higher amount, is that already sort of covered?
it's budgeted at the same amount that we have.
Okay.
So,
So,
and then there's budgeted 1 month overlap. So depending on what goes there, and then I'll make some decisions from there. If we need to hire at a little higher amount, do I have enough money in the budget to cover that or not?
Okay.
And
a while ago in the fall, and maybe Roy probably knows the answer to this question, I don't know. I remember on the listserv, there was a bingo night held at the Pellorins for the public safety complex, and I'm just wondering, where does that revenue show up?
it doesn't come to the town.
Even though it said public safety complex?
Oh, do you remember there was public
No.
safety nights? but it went to the associations, not to.
So the Police Benevolent Association, the Fire and the Ambulance Benevolent Association hosted the Thursday night bingo there. The only special night that was hosted, like, you know, promoted hosted, it was a fundraiser for the young lady who has cancer in town.
No, I remember, Roy, because when Martha posted on the listserv, it was noted as a new, how was it worded? Not agency, I forget how it was worded, but it was specifically said public safety complex.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right.
No, nothing comes to the town from the bingo. It goes to the associations. I can.
No,
tell
I
you-
know that those others went to the associations.
I
that
can tell you that all three associations have worked together to donate equipment and things that were supposed to be budgeted in to help keep us on budget.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if there are any new positions that are being proposed for 2025.
No, and that was in the slide deck. There's staffing's remaining the same.
Any questions?
That? What do you,
Public comment.
public comment?
As you go through, the first time you use each acronym, you should spell it out. For example, DRA, CIP. You don't have to continue it through the presentation.
Yep.
But at the first instance of each acronym.
Yep.
Spell it out.
I will do so if I forget. You can hammer on me an email.
Remind me of the select board.
Yes. Oh, on that note, so
Or on the-
the meeting with the select board is at 6.
On the floor.
On the floor. So do we still have a meeting on the 3rd, right, or not? We don't? Okay. We got rid of that?
You just
Okay.
did it.
Alright. So. That means. So if you have any final suggestions on the presentation, email them. When I make all the edits people have requested, I will send them out. You guys can review the next couple of days and make edits, like suggestions to do final checks, that would be great. Once I have a final version, I'll send it out, and then depending on how many comments come in, I usually collect a bunch of comments, implement it, and then send it out if there are any. But I'm not gonna send out a new presentation every single time, right? I address a comment.
I'll just need the final version for printing.
Right, and then I'm hoping by the weekend, like by next weekend, it's like, well, actually, next weekend is the weekend before the 4th, right?
Yep.
Okay.
4th is the select board, and then the 5th is the
Public
hearing.
hearing, so,
6th is snow day.
So the
So-
board's like a dress rehearsal.
yeah, so the meeting with the select board is a dress rehearsal, it's gonna be the same audience with the select board. And then next day, the select board again shows up, but it's our meeting. And then we're gonna present to a room that will literally be hacked.
Oh.
What? It is.
Remember from last
It
year
is.
was, yeah.
Packed.
Remember, that meeting is gonna be at 7.
That
Yeah.
meeting is later, is at 7.
And, when do we vote on it?
After the public, at the end of the public hearing,
On the 5th.
on the 5th.
Thank you.
So yes, the
That was at 7.
4th is essentially a dress rehearsal.
It is, but it's also a meeting of the budget committee.
Yes,
And the select board.
yes,
You'll each be actually in a meeting.
Yes,
So if you
yeah.
want to change something at that point,
Right.
you're in a
we
meeting.
can.
Yeah.
So should the slides be provided to the select board in advance?
Well, yeah, we should try to get them by Thursday, but
So essentially by next Thursday, we want slides done. So if you have any comments, please send them to me no later than the end of the day, Sunday. Monday at the absolute latest, because it's much easier for me to work on this stuff over the weekend than it is when I put in a 10-12 hour day. And so I will send out a revised version no later than the end of the day, Saturday. Sound good?
And then we can work with you, even if we have the most updated slides to send to the select board, if there's some small changes.
Yeah.
We can just highlight those on Monday night. This year's gonna fly by too.
Motion to adjourn,
I make a motion to adjourn meeting.
Second.
meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Well done.
Dimitri,
I mean, you're amazing.